Welcome back to another episode of Up in the Air. I'm Hunter Williams, and this week we're very pleased to introduce a new member of our team.
Thank you, Hunter. I'm Amanda Reynolds, and it's a pleasure to be here on the show.
We hope that everybody's been staying safe out there with all of the snow, and we hope that everybody's nice and warm and ready to enjoy this week's show.
That's right. We have plenty to talk about, from the Super Bowl ratings to animal forecasting.
Also, Ryan Breton will be joining us later in the show for the 8 to 14 day climate outlook.
But first, let's take a look at the latest news and information from the Weather Enterprise and the climate community.
Here's this week's edition of Update in the Air.
According to a study done by Moss Flight, an airline research firm, each canceled flight due to winter weather can cost an airline nearly $6,000. With thousands of flights being canceled due to last week's winter weather storms, airlines are looking at a $38 million price tag for all of those canceled flights. Airlines aren't the only ones to take a hit. Typically, passengers must also spend money to book hotels or alternative transportation if their flights are canceled. Over the course of this past week, an estimated 450,000 passengers were affected by canceled flights, and it cost them nearly $220 million to change plans and reschedule flights. This isn't unusual. During a typical winter, approximately 70,000 flights are canceled. These numbers are typically higher when there is a particularly cold winter, like 2014, when over 126,000 flights were canceled. Airlines typically don't take too much of a financial hit from canceling flights because they know it will happen, and they are able to plan ahead and take canceled flights into their winter calculations.
It appears that University of Iowa researchers may have found a strange correlation between the historic April 27, 2011 severe weather outbreak and land clearing fires in Central America. This outbreak produced 122 tornadoes and resulted in 313 deaths across the southeastern United States. According to the study, smoke from across the Gulf of Mexico was pulled into the southeast during the outbreak and may have helped lower cloud bases and increase wind shear, assisting the development of powerful tornadoes. The researchers came to such a conclusion by utilizing computer models to simulate weather events both with and without the presence of smoke, and noticed these observations. This is the first such study of the role that smoke could play in severe weather outbreaks, and while many questions remain, these Iowa researchers hope to analyze additional events in the future to further develop their findings.
This past week, NASA astronaut Terry Virts was able to see the latest winter storm from the International Space Station. Virts is part of the Expedition 42 crew who are currently doing research on the International Space Station. Virts posted a photo to Twitter last Wednesday with the caption, "It looks like a hurricane. Last night she was just east of Boston." Other intriguing photos of the storm were captured by various satellites. For example, this photo was captured by the Suomi NPP satellite, a NASA-owned satellite, early on Tuesday, January 27th. In addition, the Geostationary Operational Environmental Satellite, commonly known as the GOES satellite, was able to create this movie as the storm moved across the United States.
In the wake of two major snowstorms in the time frame of just a few days, the city of Boston has set a new snowfall record for the snowiest 7 days in the city's history. From January 27th to February 2nd, the city racked up 40.2 inches of snow, shattering the previous record of 31.2 inches set back 19 years ago in January of 1996. In addition to the snow, Logan Airport in Boston recorded winds as high as 45 miles per hour. Meanwhile, the snow days continue to add up for Boston area schools, with the city school system having recorded 6 snow days so far, pushing the last day of the school year back to June 29th. The State Department of Transportation has also been hard hit by the impressive snowfall, and during the record-setting span, has approximately 3,200 pieces of snow removal equipment out on the roads at any given time.
2014 was the warmest year on record according to the temperature data of many national agencies. Although the exact measurements vary by country, all 5 of the top meteorological agencies in the world had 2014 as the warmest year on record, about 1 degree warmer than the 30-year average of 57.2 degrees Fahrenheit. There have been a couple other years in the recent past that were very similar to 2014, which were 2010 and 2005. The World Meteorological Organization made a point of clarifying that all 3 of these years were very close in temperature, but 2014 edged out the others. The WMO announced that these statistics in preparation for more international climate negotiations that will be taking place next week in Geneva, Switzerland. In addition, there have been no record cold years since 1911.
With the past week's Super Bowl being played in the indoor confines of the University of Phoenix Stadium, it seemed as if the weather would have little impact on the game. And as far as the play on the field was concerned, this was true, but with record numbers of viewers turning in for the big game, it appears that the weather did have an impact on the ratings. In cities impacted heavily by the snowstorm in the past few weeks, such as Detroit, Chicago, and Boston, the game performed exceptionally well, with many residents snowed into their homes. In Chicago, the game garnered a 54.9 rating with a 72 share. These figures topped those of the Chicago-Indianapolis Super Bowl back in 2007. Meanwhile, in Detroit, the game drew a 55 rating and a 71 share, and in Boston, the game drew a massive 61 rating and 85 share, making it an all-time Super Bowl high. Such a large event is expected to draw massive numbers, but it appears that the snow certainly played a role in the record ratings of this year's game.
Welcome back to Up in the Air.
Now, we all know the myths surrounding Groundhog's Day, and unfortunately this year, Phil saw a shadow predicting 6 more weeks of winter.
We now welcome Matthew Koval, who says Punxsutawney Phil is not the only animal forecaster.
Growing up in Pennsylvania, or anywhere in the U.S. for that matter, you probably recognize this little guy right here, Punxsutawney Phil, who has been predicting the weather every February 2nd since 1887, is considered the most popular animal forecaster in the U.S. And his forecast is rather simple. If he sees a shadow on the morning of February 2nd, expect 6 more weeks of winter. However, if he doesn't see a shadow, spring is just around the corner. And just like any weather forecaster, Phil is no stranger to skepticism. Some years he's just right, while other years he's far from correct. But he's also not the only animal forecaster out there with vast weather wisdom. Let's take a look at 2 other fauna forecasters and whether their weather claim to fame is fact or fiction. Woolly bear caterpillars, like the one pictured above, are one of the most recognizable caterpillars in North America due to their black-orange stripes. A weather proverb that accompanies these caterpillars is that the width of a woolly bear caterpillar's orange stripe can predict how severe the winter will be, with a wide orange stripe representing a mild winter and a thin orange stripe representing a harsh winter. Despite the popularity of this proverb, scientific evidence has proven that this weather forecast is false. So if the woolly bear caterpillar's forecast isn't backed by scientific proof, then how did it become so popular? Well, it started out in the 1950s when insect curator at New York's American Museum of Natural History, Dr. C.H. Curran, accurately predicted the severity of consecutive winters by analyzing the average width of the orange stripe of woolly bear caterpillars. Now, even Dr. Curran knew that his attempt at a new weather rule of thumb would never hold due to his small sample size. And despite the lack of scientific evidence, the popularity of these caterpillars and the folktale continues to grow. Another small insect with a weather claim to fame is the field cricket. The weather folktale that coincides with crickets is that the cricket chirps that you can hear at night can tell you the outside temperature. Although this sounds ridiculous, there is a scientific law that proves that this folktale is fact. In 1897, Amos Dolbear, an American physicist, published an article titled Crickets as a Thermometer, in which he said that there was a relationship between the outside air temperature and the number of cricket chirps. His formula, shown above, shows that if you add 40 to the number of cricket chirps that you hear in 15 seconds, you can get the outside air temperature in degrees Fahrenheit. And this relationship is even known as Dolbear's Law. So whether it's groundhogs, crickets, or caterpillars, it seems that some animals have a slight idea in how to forecast the weather. However, none of them can match the superior weather forecasting skills of a meteorologist. For Up in the Air, I'm Matthew Koval.
Thanks again for joining us here on Up in the Air.
February so far in Pennsylvania has shown no relief from the cold and the snow.
We are now joined by another member of our team, Ryan Breton, who has your 8 to 14-day climate outlook and perhaps the answer for those of you asking if relief could be on the way.
Thanks very much, Hunter and Amanda. That's right, a lot of snow and a lot of cold in the Northeast in recent weeks, and no major changes in our climate outlook for the next couple of weeks. We'll get to those details, though, in just a moment. So far this season in State College, 33 inches of snow has fallen. Compared that to the average snowfall for the entire season at 45, we are well on our way, and there's even a good chance that we exceed what we had last year, which was 52 inches of snow in State College for the entire season. Considering that we have March, the rest of February to go too, plenty of opportunities to add on to that snow total. We have had plenty of snow, though, through the Northeast and New England, parts of Boston into Maine and New Hampshire, with over 2 to 3 feet of snow on the ground. And in fact, I read that down in East Maine near Eastport, in just 3 or 4 weeks, they picked up over 70 inches of snow. So really an impressive snow blitz through a lot of New England over the past week or two. 38% of the nation covered in snow at this time, so nothing too extreme, that's for sure. And with the continued cold in the east, we'll continue to add on to this snowpack here throughout much of Pennsylvania as well. Taking a look at the weather pattern next week, though, beginning on Monday, no major changes, the same general pattern that we've had for quite some time, a big ridge in the west and a trough in the east. This may tend to relax a bit during the middle part of next week, but then this ridge will begin to reload and send another shot of cold air down into the northeast, potentially with more stormy weather toward the end of the week. So the bottom line is that this active weather pattern is going to continue, and there really are no changes in our future. So how this breaks down on the 8 to 14 day outlook for the period from February 11th through the 17th. Colder to much colder than normal conditions through much of the eastern seaboard, and it's quite possible that Pennsylvania is squarely in the middle of that colder than normal weather. Continuing our way through the west, much above normal temperatures expected as a result of that big ridge in effect out there. In terms of the precipitation, below normal down here through the south coast and southeast along the Gulf Coast, but through the northern part of the nation, above normal precipitation is expected, again, owing to the fact that we may have cold air in place and an active jet stream, certainly many more opportunities for snow over the next several weeks. Through the west, below normal down here through the Four Corners, and of course, they actually saw quite a bit of rain earlier last week, and we talked about that with the Super Bowl as well. Before the game, they had quite a bit of rain there in Phoenix. Above normal precipitation is expected, though, through, again, the northern tier of the U.S., and that will extend into the Pacific Northwest as well. So that's the way that things break down in this week's climate outlook. We'll continue to track the cold and snow and keep you posted on that State College snow total through the rest of the winter.
That's all we have for this week's episode of Up in the Air.
We'll be back next week with another episode.
Thanks to all of you for tuning in, and please remember to find Up in the Air on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube to stay up to date on all of the latest episodes.
I'm Hunter Williams.
And I'm Amanda Reynolds.
We'll see you next week, Up in the Air.